In an earlier program, that's this one in which I used malloc to set aside some memory for a string, I allocated the memory and I left it allocated throughout my program. Once memory is allocated, it's no longer available to the rest of your program. So in principle, if you continue to allocate chunks of memory, you might eventually run out of memory when there is no more memory left to be allocated. Now, on modern desktop computers, this is rarely in fact the case, because they simply have huge amounts of memory. I could go on allocating more and more memory for strings and never run into any problems. Even so, if you allocated very large amounts of memory without ever freeing any up when it's no longer needed, you'd be using memory very inefficiently. Keeping memory allocated, even when it's not needed, that is, when it's no longer referenced by any variables or pointers in your program, well, that creates what are usually referred to as memory leaks. This could be a real problem if you happen to be writing C programs for devices that don't have huge amounts of memory. For example, hardware controllers for machines or robotic devices, and they might have very small amounts of memory. At any rate, it's good practice to deallocate memory to make it available again for use in your program when that memory is no longer needed. And the usual way to do that in C is by calling the free function. Now let's look at this other program. So you can see in this program I've already done that. I've called free. This is the program where I showed in an earlier lesson how to use the calloc function, and I called free to free up memory that's no longer needed. For example, I've allocated memory for an array of 6 characters, and here for 6 integers. And then later on, when I no longer need that array, I call free, passing to it the variable for which the memory was allocated. Here, that's the string s, or the char pointer s, and here it's the pointer, the int pointer p. You should make a habit of freeing memory whenever it's no longer needed. But be careful. If you call free on a variable that was never allocated, or if you try to use allocated memory after you've called free, then your program will go horribly wrong.